Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're finally taking a look at the newest comic-based Build-A-Figure from Marvel Legends. This is the Controller. The Controller is a classic Iron Man villain who basically uses a mechanized suit and some devices known as slave discs to control and harness the minds of victims that he kidnaps. And this is a figure that makes for a very excellent foil to any Iron Man figures you have, which is fortunate because the first figure included in this wave was an Iron Man. So all you have to do is buy the wave and you can already pit these two against each other. That being said, if you see my BAF reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to get a really good look at this Build-A-Figure. I'm going to check out his parts, posability, accessories. We'll be doing some group shots and size comparisons today with other Build-A-Figures. I'll also be pulling out the entire wave that he's built around and doing like a really quick wave overview. And then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So our controller is a decently large Build-A-Figure. He's not the biggest, but he's not, normal human size either. You can see he's got a ton of really nice paintwork, a lot of really nice shiny plastic, amazing sculpting on the face here. You can see every little crack and recess on his diseased-looking face. The head is very posable. It's on the ball joint and hinge, but then the next up itself also rotates, which is pretty cool. He has fully universal shoulders, a bicep swivel, single bent elbows with a swivel, I guess because his arms are so big, universal wrists. He has an ab crunch. And he has a waist swivel, and something that's odd about it that I've pointed out is he has this belt here, but the belt isn't just kind of free hanging like they normally are. It's actually embedded down into the waist joint with a little tab that I don't know if you can see it well. It's like right here on the front. Because of that, it can't lift up or go down to move out of the way when you turn the waist, so it limits his waist articulation. So I really don't know why they did that. I mean, you can still get some pretty decent bends out of it, but I wouldn't push it too far. You might snap something off the belt. He also has universal hips, a thigh swivel, double knee bend, and then universal ankles. So most of the posability you'd expect. One thing that's a little weird about him is his legs don't stay closed very well. They want to settle into this fairly wide A stance. Like, you can push them shut and adjust the ankles, but their natural tendency is to just start moving inward again. So, moving outward. So you can see it's already pushing itself apart. I don't know why it does that. Kind of annoying. But, he's still pretty cool looking. If you don't mind him having a bit of a wide stance, it shouldn't bother you too much. Pretty bulky guy. Looks very good. Has very Hulk-like proportions. Though most of that bulk is actually just a robotic suit that he's wearing. He's really like a sickly old man inside of this suit that kind of channels all that mental energy. Speaking of mental energy, you can see on this open hand right here, he holds 2 slave discs in his palm, so he can use them to, channel the thoughts and powers and stuff of victims that he's captured. Interestingly, let's see here. These are sometimes shown to actually be able to fire electricity and I think even flames sometimes. For no discernible reason. I guess whoever wrote those particular stories just decided they wanted them to shoot stuff, so they did. Go figure. So this is very cool. He's also got this kind of just natural open hand with really great palm texturing. You see that right there on his gloves? Very well done. Of course, if you want more closed fists for dramatic effect or for punching or something, you can go ahead and attach these. They come out and pop back in pretty easily. Also universal with a hinge on them. So you can get something like this. Which also looks very cool. Again, really helps play up that Hulk-like appearance. And I would say overall, he's a pretty satisfactory Build-A-Figure. He's not massive, he's not super intricate, but I think a lot of his quality comes down to the quality of the build, the sculpting, the plastic coloration, and then that paintwork. So he may not be the biggest, but he is a very well done figure. I think my only qualm with the guy is, again, that weird tendency for his legs to spread apart. I mean, it's a fine looking position. It's not so spread apart that it looks awkward, but it does mean that you can't get more neutral stances out of him. And that is something I think is a shame. Okay, now here is a look at the controller being compared to the two BAFs that I've reviewed so far that are closest in mass to him. So over here we have the Multiverse of Madness Rintra, clocking in at 211 grams. Then we have Bonebreaker from the latest X-Men wave, and he clocks in at 280 grams. So where does Controller fall? Well, he is 253, so pretty much right in the middle there. So he's definitely on the smaller side. Not tiny, but I think he is like the second smallest Build-A-Figure that I reviewed so far, next to Rintra. So yeah, again, not a whole lot when it comes to mass. You're not getting a ton of plastic for what you spent on the wave, but he does at least look cool. And funny enough, he's only slightly lighter than the non-Build-A-Figure Winged Venom from that King in Black 2-pack, and that guy was 255, so he's only 2 grams less than that. Which I'm actually kind of surprised by because that figure felt very heavy. I guess it's just the awkwardness of his big wings. So yeah, Controller's about the same size as that Venom, or, same weight anyway. And yeah, it doesn't bother me too much that he's pretty light. He's pretty much in the same vein as certain figures like the comic book Thanos when it comes to size. Thanos a little bit bigger, but he's about in that ballpark, roughly Hulk-size characters, maybe a little bit smaller. Now here's a fun battle scene with the Controller fighting the classic Iron Man, since Controller is a classic Iron Man villain. You could always swap in the Iron Man from this wave if you'd like to, if you either don't have a more classic Iron Man or you just prefer the more modern look. But for me personally, since Controller is, one of the older Iron Man villains, I figure the classic suit is probably the best fit for him. And you can see, he's a great thematic rival for Iron Man because they're both wearing a robotic suit of some kind. Now, the Controller is a bit more form-fitting, and he ends up just looking like a really big, ugly guy, but he really is just a sickly man inside of a giant suit. And, they both just have this really neat, two-tone aesthetic, right? Iron Man goes for your red and yellow or red and gold, depending on the interpretation. Controller gets your, metallic dark blue against a more sky blue color. And I always do like the idea of a normal-sized hero fighting a large or gigantic villain, so you get that really cool David and Goliath feel going on. And I think Controller is kind of perfect for that, right? He is a big, hulking, scary version of Iron Man. And because they have shown the slave disc that he holds in his hand to actually be able to fire projectiles, he even has some similar abilities to Iron Man. Now, I know some people don't like that. I know, the MCU is really bad about making the bad guy just the evil version of the good guy. But in some ways, that can actually work, especially if their powers aren't like a carbon copy and they have their own abilities, which Controller does, right? He is a guy that's all about mind control. So where he thrives by exploiting others and taking their abilities for himself, Iron Man is the very self-reliant type, where all of his stuff comes from his own mind, which is a mind I'm sure the Controller would love to get a hold of and use for his own abilities. And lastly, here's our shot of the entire wave that was centered around the Controller. So this was a full 7-figure wave, with Iron Man being the one figure that doesn't contain a BAF piece. And now you might be saying, hold on, I see 8 figures here. So this figure right here, Quake, actually came with some alternate parts to make a different Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill. So if you bought more than one, you could have both of the characters. So I did that, but this is, technically one figure here. So, just to cover it quickly, going from left to right, you have your U.S.Agent, Speedball, Madam Hydra, our Iron Man. Then we get our Thor, Herald of Galactus, Quake / Maria Hill, and then Blue Marvel. You can also see Thor's ravens down here at the bottom. So, kind of giving some brief thoughts on this. The star of the show when it comes to your non-BAF figures is easily the Thor here. I mean, there's a reason everybody's gloating over this guy, and you might be thinking, oh, well, everyone's saying that's the best one. It's like, well, yeah, it's because it is. It's a very big figure. He's almost as tall as the Controller here, and he's incredibly intricate. Tons of layers, tons of great sculpting, comes with a lot of accessories, including 2 giant ravens. So, easily the best figure in the wave. The U.S.Agent is also very cool. He's pretty much a Captain America clone, which is what he's supposed to be. He does have less intricate armor than Captain. He doesn't have that cool chainmail effect around the shoulders, but that is accurate to the comics. So he's very cool on his own. He comes with a fair amount of accessories, including the shield. The Iron Man is also great. He has tons of layered panels going on, lots of cool decos here with the lights all over his body. He's got your pulsar blast effects. And as we saw, he makes a great rival for this Controller here. Our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here, they're pretty good actually. They're a bit on the smaller side, being female characters, but they come with quite a few accessories. I mean, so many that you can make 2 different characters out of that same figure. So you get your, Quake gauntlets if you want to make her Quake, along with Quake's more spiky hairdo there. You get all these bands and stuff hanging off. They get this uniquely sculpted upper torso. It's very neat. And then, you get the Maria Hill head with the nice little, earpiece right there. She comes with 1 pistol. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but she does have 1 right there. And, overall, just pretty satisfying. They're on the new female buck, which is awesome. It's got a lot of posability. It's very stable. It has great proportions. Unlike Madam Hydra here, who is on one of the oldest female bucks out there for the most part. She does have a little bit of uniqueness with the little arm, the long arm-length gloves and everything. That's about it. Her one saving grace really is that she comes with the cool holster with the 2 pistols. That's about it. We got Blue Marvel over here. He's very cool looking. The buck that he's on is not great. It has a lot of posability issues. He has those weird rubbery joints and stuff. But he does at least have a lot of nice sculpting, a lot of nice paintwork, and he does come with these energy effects right here. So I would say he's okay. Not great, but okay. And then lastly we get Speedball, who has an awesome head sculpt and some good paintwork, and that's unfortunately it. Has no alternate head, no alternate hands, no accessories. I know a lot of people are looking for his little ball-like energy effects, and he just doesn't come with any of that stuff. So very bare bones. Now, he did include the torso part of controller here, so you do have to take that into account for, the budget and how much space you got to put in the packaging. But we did also see, if you saw that review, that there's a huge open space in the upper left corner of his window. There's just nothing there. You could have easily put all sorts of things there. Head, hands, energy effects. But they just decided it wasn't in the budget. And he ends up being very minimalist. So overall, I would say it's a good wave. And really kind of falls all along the spectrum of quality, in my opinion. You have your top tier stuff, like Thor here. And then I can't decide which one's the worst of the wave. It's either going to be Madam Hydra or Speedball. I think Speedball has better paint, better sculpting, and a better buck, but he has no accessories. Whereas Madam Hydra is very plain and very boring looking, but at least gets the holsters with the 2 guns. So yeah, a lot of variance in the quality of this wave. And then you have a lot of stuff that's just kind of middle of the road to upper. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Iron Man armor. I think they did a fantastic job on this. And yeah, I think the controller just works for this. It's a wave that's thematically all over the place. You get Iron Man stuff, you get some Herald of Galactus stuff in the case of Thor, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra, and then you get some new warriors even thrown in there, and Blue Marvel, who's just kind of doing his own thing. He's a bit of a wanderer, that one. And this completes our look at the new controller Build-A-Figure. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this guy. He's not the biggest Build-A-Figure out there. He's no Titan or anything. But he's also not a tiny little puny, 5 or 6 foot tall Build-A-Figure either. He is a very, very large character. And then he's really helped out by just the excellent paintwork, the really nice use of metallic plastic, and the just amazing sculpting on the hands, on the face. He's got a lot going for him. The only thing I don't like about this BAF is that aforementioned belt issue, where for some reason they actually installed the belt into the waist swivel, so you can't move it out of the way, and it does limit his articulation. There is also the minor thing with his legs wanting to be a little more spread apart than, what would be a neutral standing position. That doesn't bother me too much, because I'm always going to have him in some sort of dramatic pose anyway. Plus, he balances better at a wider stance, because he's pretty, bulky, pretty top-heavy. So aside from some really minor qualms, I think he's great. He's very stable, he holds together well, you don't have arms or anything falling off. And he is, one of the more interesting Iron Man villains out there, and one that, hasn't really been in the public consciousness for a while. So to get a relatively obscure character as a Build-A-Figure is always nice. Nobody wants a Build-A-Figure that's somebody that pops up all the time. So this guy, he gets to fill a nice hole in your collection. Because, as cool as it is to get a new version of a character sometimes, in my opinion, it's even cooler to get a character we haven't received before, and the controller checks that box. So I think he's great. I can't wait to put him on my shelf next to, other Iron Man adjacent characters. And I think if you do go out of your way to pick this guy up, either by, buying him secondhand from someone that collected the wave or collecting the wave yourself, you won't regret it, because the wave itself is quite good too, aside from, one or two kind of bunk figures. Of course, that is just how I feel about the controller, so now I want to know what you all think of this BAF. Is this one you're interested in collecting? Are you feeling him enough to want to actually collect the entire wave and get all the figures that comes with him? Or do you only want to if you can just buy him by himself and, save some money? Or do you not want this guy? Either you don't like the way it came out, or you have no interest in the character, or you think, Legends are just too overpriced to collect him. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Marvel Legends The Controller Build-A-Figure. And with all that said, I will see you next time.